Hi, this is Brian Hyde, and just want to bring you a quick update on what was going on this morning in the courtroom. Of course, the jury was not in the courtroom, and here's the downside of this. It's a pain because this trial really can't move forward until the jury is there and a part of the process. The whole reason they're there is to hear the evidence and to make a decision in the case, but lots of motions back and forth between the defense and the prosecution today. Interestingly enough, picking up where we left off yesterday, the prosecution finally provided a copy of a threat assessment. There was actually some question as to when this was done. It referenced things in 2008, it referenced things in 2012, but apparently there wasn't a clear date on the document, and the prosecution finally provided this to the defense. And this was the threat assessment that was done by the BLM Law Enforcement Division. And it was an earlier Department of the Interior OIG report stating that the BLM had failed because it had not enforced the earlier impoundment order or earlier orders to remove Clive and Bundy's cattle from that federal land. Why this wasn't brought forth to the defense in a timely fashion, why it's brought forth where there's a question as to even when it was created. The defense, of course, is asking a lot of questions on cross-examination, and they're doing their very best to get some answers. But for all the world, it appears that the government records that have been kept purely for its own purposes, and they're doing nothing to help the defense. Understandably, they want to help their own case. They want to do, what's best for them. But the downside is, by law, they have to provide those things. And so there will be more witnesses called as a result of this information coming forward. Ammon Bundy's attorney, Dan Hill, today actually made a motion to amend the witness list. Kind of makes you wonder, what witnesses are we going to be hearing? Dan Love's name has come up. I don't know that he would be a witness, but perhaps people who worked with him, people who can shed some light on what his orders were and what he was telling people to do. A lot of evidence apparently was shredded as the BLM left the impoundment area in April of 2014. And anyway, the defense has had its hands full trying to go through all of this stuff coming forward in discovery. I think it is safe to say, though, that for the time being, fate is favoring the defense in the sense that the prosecution has been very reticent to bring forth the information it's supposed to be bringing forth. The judge has given the defense the okay to approach this from an angle that perhaps there is a case to be made for entrapment, and that could be a very powerful tool for the defense later on in this case. One thing that one of the federal prosecutors brought up in court today, again, they're making motions. We got to suppress what we call irrelevant evidence, which means anything that damages their case. And one of the attorneys made the comment, it doesn't matter if there were 1,000 BLM people with guns, or if there was 1,000 snipers pointing rifles at the protesters who were there, or the supporters who came out to support the Bundys. The bottom line was, he said, there was a First Amendment area set up, and that's where their protest should have taken place. I'm just going to let you take that for what it's worth, but that seems very inconsistent with the America that most of us have grown up knowing. The judge seems to be leaning towards the defense at this point. She was actually looking at things within the OIG report, even as the attorneys were arguing back and forth. Keep in mind that part of the indictment was that the Bundys had made false claims about being surrounded or being under siege by men with guns, the FBI or the BLM. And the indictment claims that those were false claims that they broadcast, and that's what they used. That was essentially them ringing the dinner bell to bring their supporters running. And yet more and more of this evidence is coming forward that is showing that the Bundys were correct in what they were stating. And they were not exaggerating. And it's the government whose case is being chipped away at and undermined at every turn with new information that's coming forward. So